positive reaction today, Emmett, about announcing the series.
Really? Good.
Yeah, a lot of people were excited.
Well, that's exciting. I'm excited about doing it already. How the stars have aligned. For once in our lives, we're enjoying the movies that we get to watch. I mean, really, you like, okay, so to like just give you a peek behind the curtain here, you know, you're like, you think to yourself, perhaps we really like watching movies. We really do sometimes like watching movies. And you're like, oh, maybe we could do a podcast where you could listen to us talk about movies that we'd watched. And then we somehow managed to do a lot of movies that we really hated the experience of watching. Incredible. So we did it for you, dear listener, no one else. And now, fresh out the oven, it's Cinema Bums. Wait, what? Wait, what were you going to say?
I was going to say it feels like maybe twice a year, if we're lucky, we get to cover movies we like to watch on this podcast.
Yeah, and they both happened during Remember the Name.
Yeah, I at least try to watch. I normally watch like at least one other movie a week in addition to the one podcast movie. So that's not sort of like the only media I take in because I don't watch any TV. So it's not like The Lion King 2 is the only thing I see in 1 week.
This summer, the only thing I watched was Twilight and Denis Villeneuve movies. And that was it. It was a grim summer.
Well, I'm excited that I get to be on the series that you're actually excited about, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, and it's like, why we get, you know, I think when we get back to watching movies in theaters on a regular basis, this will be more, you know, going and watching movies is like very exciting. Anyway.
I've seen a couple. Did I tell you guys that I met Kristen Stewart like a couple weeks ago?
No.
You told me you were going to.
Wait, what?
How was it?
I went to a screening of Spencer, her Princess Diana movie. And like at the end of it, her and the director came out and like did like a little Q&A session about it.
Wow.
It was cool. We knew that was going to happen, but it was just at like a regular movie theater, like it was a regular ticket price. And then like very awkwardly at the end of the movie, they came and like stood at the front in front of the screen and answered questions.
What sort of things did they say?
They talked a little about the influences and the costumes and stuff. People were mostly asking questions about the things that the two of them had nothing to do with. Like people were asking about the music and the costumes and the script. And it's like, well, you've got the director and the actor here. But it was cool and really weird. And she's definitely gonna win the Oscar for it. Mark my words now.
Okay.
Wow.
I considered wearing my Robert Pattinson shirt from our Twilight announcement video, but
Cold Boy Summer.
That might not be the move when you're going to meet the Princess of Wales. Seems a little cavalier. Well, after this wonderfully rambling, what would you call this? You know, the time right before the timer goes off in the kitchen, and then fresh out the oven, it's Cinema Bums. I'm Emmett.
And I'm Wade.
Cinema Bums is a podcast where we watch through every single movie in popular film franchises, one each week, to try and track how the storytelling changes over time. Today, we are continuing our miniseries, The House Bummy, covering every film written by Karen McCullough and Kirsten Smith. We will fully spoil today's film, but we will not spoil any future entries in the series. Wade? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Emmett. How are you?
I am doing well. You know, as we were saying, excited to be working on these fun movies.
We realized too late that we should have called the series Legally Bummed instead of The House Bummy.
Yeah, that is better.
How does bum play in?
Because of Cinema Bums.
I'm so sorry.
Because of the podcast you're on, Cinema Bums.
Right.
So sorry.
So if you were wondering, dear listener, who this mysterious voice is, that's the other reason I'm really happy to be here today, is because today we're honored to have a special guest. She's a writer and comedian, perhaps best known to our audience as the creator of the Change.org petition, Remake Legally Blonde with our greatest living actress, Anna Kendrick.
Yep.
Please welcome Kate Evans.
Woo!
Thank you. I knew as soon as you said probably best known for, I knew exactly what I was going to somehow wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being back. Thanks for taking the stairs with us once again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but but I'm happy to be back on a movie I feel so differently about than the last movie that we watched.
Have you seen this movie and or the other McCullough and Smith films before?
I have seen Legally Blonde before. It's been a while, and I think I've seen most of the other films in the series.
When you saw it before, did you like it? Did you have good memories of it?
Yeah. Yes, I watched it. Okay, I know I watched it in high school, and I thought it was really fun. And then I watched it again a couple years ago, and I remember being like, wow, that movie held up way better than I thought it was going to, and I still really enjoyed it. I was probably more like charmed by it than genuinely thinking this is one of the greatest movies ever made. Mm-hmm. But then going into it again just this weekend, I was terrified that I was like, that movie holds up. A couple years ago, and then I was going to watch this again and be like, what was I thinking? So yeah, this is technically my third time watching it.
Nice.
But you didn't watch it as a kid.
I mean, in high school I watched it. Yeah,
okay.
But not younger than that.
Wade, how about you? Had you seen this before?
No, I was always aware of this movie. I think maybe my mom had it on DVD. Although I would always confuse in my head this and Miss Congeniality, which my mom also had on DVD. But I like knew what it was, but I guess I always thought it was more of an adult R-rated comedy as a kid, and didn't watch it until for this podcast. Emma, what about you?
I hadn't seen it until earlier this summer when I watched it with my sisters and liked it then, and then watched it again.
Had they seen it, or did you all?
They had both seen it before and were like, yeah, let's rewatch this. And I was also there and was like, yeah, let's do it. And then it was good, and I watched it again, and knowing where it was going, I liked it even more, like on a rewatch. I think it like holds up even better. The things about it that are, I think like the things that you like about her character are even more likable on a second go through in some way. Yeah. So Wade, what are the stats for Legally Blonde?
Yes, Legally Blonde is the second film written by Karen McCullough and Kirsten Smith. It was directed by Robert Luketic, who is once again a first-time director, like last week with 10 Things I Hate About You. He's an Australian guy, and we'll talk about him later in the series because he also directs The Ugly Truth.
Okay.
We'll look out for any connections between these two. But this is adapted from the 2003 novel Legally Blonde by Amanda Brown. How could a movie be adapted from a book that comes out 2 years after the movie? Well, you'll have to wait and listen to find out. But once again, an adaptation from McCullough and Smith. The score is by Rolf Kent, who is my favorite Muppet. It runs 1 hour and 36 minutes, blessedly. Released on my 7th birthday, July 13th, 2001. And it was a huge success at the time. The $18 million budget and a box office of 141.
Wow.
Which is more than double the big success of 10 Things, which did $60 million on a similar budget. And it was mixed to positive critical reaction at the time, but obviously has gone on to have a huge impact on the culture, I would say. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But Emmett, how would you explain what happens in this film to anyone who hasn't seen it?
So the story is about young Elle Woods, who at the beginning of the film we find in her senior year of undergraduate college. She's the president of her sorority. At the beginning of the movie, she believes that she's about to be proposed to by her very rich and maybe headed for important things kind of doofus boyfriend. What's his name? Is it Warren? Or no, Warner. Warner. Oh my gosh. I mean, I love all of the casting in this movie so much, but he's particularly hateable. So she thinks that she's going to get proposed to by him. Instead, he breaks up with her because basically the implication is she's not serious enough and he has to go and get his life serious. and try and be a senator. And so he's going to Harvard Law School, and she's just not that serious for him. She's devastated, and she decides, by God, she's going to go to Harvard Law School and follow him there, prove to him that she is a serious person and that he belongs with her, as Taylor Swift would say. And she does it. First off, she just does that. She just decides to do that, and then she does that thing. She is like in the end of the second semester of her senior year. She's like, yes, I'm going to Harvard Law School because I have a 4.0. She makes the best admission video of all time, or the best, application video of all time.
It's directed by one of the Coppolas, but they don't say which one. They don't say if they pulled Francis out of retirement or if it's Sophia, or God forbid if it's Gia.
That's so
they leave that purposefully blank.
So then she gets in, shows up there, only to discover that her man Warner has been snatched by this horrible girl
Oh no.
who hates her guts and thinks that she's dumb and stupid and not serious also, and who really just gives her a hard time. At which point we feel very sorry for young Elle Woods, and also feel like maybe Warner was kind of a tool and not worth her time. Meanwhile, she discovers a wonderful friend in the bumbling but lovable Paulette, who is a manicurist in town who's having relationship troubles of her own, and also custodial battles over a dog. And may we also mention friggin' Bruiser, who is Elle's cutest little boy, a little Chihuahua dog that she takes with, teacup Chihuahua, she takes with them everywhere. And usually I don't even like Chihuahuas, but this one is cute, and it goes everywhere and has little outfits. Pretty amazing. Honestly, I don't know what the plot of this movie was. I was in it for Bruiser's outfits alone. I was like, oh, now we're doing a cowboy thing.
It's an incredible dog performance. Like, part of the thrill of this movie is just seeing all the things they got that dog to do so casually.
Yeah, and that dog growls at people that dog shouldn't like, and does all sorts of cool dog stuff like that. You're so right.
I looked up the dog on Wikipedia, and apparently he starred in a couple films and lived with the Taco Bell Chihuahua dog. So they were kind of a power couple, because they lived together. So that's all we can assume. But yeah.
So there's even a joke about that in the movie, because they have the Taco Bell commercial in there, and he's looking at his friend.
Oh,
yeah.
The dog is watching the Taco Bell commercial at one.
His name is Mooney, the actor. He unfortunately passed away in 2016.
He lived really long. That's like a very long
That is
life.
really long time for a dog. That is nuts.
He did live with Gidget, as you said, who was the female dog known for the Taco Bell commercials. It doesn't say they were married, so maybe although maybe they were common law married, as this movie proposes, by the end of their relationship.
Yeah, could be. As this movie progresses, the third act is like, oh, surprise, there's going to be a plot now. Or there's going to be a plot with some urgency, I should say. Because other than most of what's going on is she's pursuing her boyfriend there. And we see her, she's made fun of at law school by everyone. No one is taking her seriously at first. Teachers, fellow students, everyone is disrespecting her, but through her perseverance, her pragmatic wits and her just good nature, she basically excels and comes to triumph over these snooty assholes. And then towards the end, she gets hired for a team that is defending. This is where it gets, like I say, a complicated plot that would be in a whole movie in something else is then in the last 20 minutes of this film. I was watching, I was like, no way are we 6 minutes to credits and I am just now in the courtroom.
I think we said that too.
What is happening? And so she's there. Their team is defending a sorority sister of hers who is accused of murdering her husband. She knows that she didn't do it because she's the woman has confessed to her alibi. But the alibi is so shameful that she won't reveal it. And Elle has agreed not to reveal it to anyone else also. So she's gained her trust, but now she won't, tell the court. Then there's also this bit that gets layered in also in like the last 10 minutes that the teacher professor who has been like hiring them for this internship and who has been defending this woman and who's like the head lawyer on the case, he's like surrounding himself with young women to be his assistants so that he can like hit on them and harass them and get them to like sleep with him in exchange for him giving them good positions in the company. And he like makes this clear to her at some point, and she gets pissed off about it and leaves. But then the other girl who's hated her this whole time and who she slowly started to like have a good friendship with, like sees it happen and is like, she thinks that she sees something else and thinks that she sees her like agreeing to it and that this has like been what she's been up to the whole time. So there's this whole very complicated thing, which I think is a really interesting plot, but it's also in like 5-10 minutes of the movie overall. And it feels like it could, I don't know, it's like a whole act unto itself. Do you know what I mean? Then at the end of all of this, she says, I'm going to do this my own way. This guy's an asshole, but I'm still going to defend this lady because, she's innocent. So she goes in and she's questioning the daughter because she has a hunch about the daughter and she figures it out. She figures out the daughter had a perm. Therefore, she couldn't have been in the shower where she said she was. Therefore, it must have been her that did it. And she admits to it in a moment of passion in the courtroom. The whole thing like crashes down on them. Cut to 3 years later, they're graduating. She's top of her class. Everybody loves her. She's amazing. Her doofus boyfriend is a doofus left out in the cold. The other girl who she didn't like for a long time, like they made up. They're friends again. Her girl Paulette got her dog back and married the hot UPS guy, and then she's like about to hook up with the hot Luke Wilson, whose name in this movie, I might say, is Emmett. So that makes 2 movie series we've covered with my name in it. So I think that's pretty fun.
I guess only one with Wade.
Only one.
Was Deadpool.
Deadpool. Yeah.
How did you feel about the Emmett representation, Emmett? Do you think better or worse than Twilight? And also the Lego Movie, which is the only other one I can think of off the top of my head.
I would say better than Twilight, not as good as the Lego Movie.
Fair.
It's all on a spectrum. Now, I have a question for you. Flop or bop, Kate?
Definitely a bop. Yeah, it's just such a feel-good, fun movie. It's really charming. Every character is really funny. And I think everything that could be better about the movie is really forgivable to me because of the whole experience of watching it. Yeah, I watched it with Wade, and there was one point where Wade, when she gets to be the head lawyer on the case, Wade was like, surely that isn't allowed before they explained the weird legal loophole where now she, for some reason, gets to be the head lawyer, even though she's a first-year law student and is not licensed at all. So anyway, it's just things like that feel really forgivable because it's such a heartwarming movie to me. So definitely a bop.
Wade, flop or bop?
A bop for me as well. I really liked it. I think her performance is so good. In this wild technical way. And when I watched it, because the movie starts and she is the fully formed character already, and she doesn't change the whole movie. It's not a story of how she becomes this wild, crazy character, or about other people convincing her she shouldn't be this wild, crazy character. And so I thought at first that maybe it was a Ted Lasso thing where this had been a character in commercials or an SNL bit or something that was becoming a movie because it was so sketched out from the very beginning. But I think that she is just incredible in it. I think the score is really great and heightens everything, which I want to talk about a little bit. I was very thrown watching it for the first time by the sexual harassment plot and how that is handled. I think probably you guys were saying, I would like it more a second time knowing that the movie is going there, but not in a way that it's doing anything wrong, just in that it is so different from everything else in the movie. It was very shocking to watch the first time. And I also will say, and this is probably all I'll say in comparison, but I do think that 10 Things I Hate About You, I enjoyed much more. Not growing up with either of these movies, I just think that one has like the supporting cast like sketched out a little bit more than this one, and also has like a higher joke per minute rate than this one does. But I think that is a really great movie, and I hope it does not cast too much of a shadow on all the other, at least good movies we're going to watch in this series, because I did think this was good, and I really liked watching. Emmett's flop or bop?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a bop also. I think it is consistently funny. I watched this after having watched several of the Nightmare on Elm Street films in a row directly before it. And it was such a nice palate cleanser because I was like, oh, I don't have to stress at all watching this. Things are just going to be okay. Like, I really like this character and everything she does is going to be good. It's just that kind of movie. Really, really comforting after watching a bunch of horror movies all in a row.
I definitely agree with what you're saying about her character being so full and so likable. I think I just love how resilient her character is. Like, so much of it is about her fighting with cultural expectations about her personality or her intellect because of her appearance. And I just feel like for every woman, it's such a frustrating experience, but she's just so... She doesn't seem to get too stressed out about it. Obviously, horrible things happen. People are really mean to her. Like, they won't let her into the study group, and they throw a party and tell her it's a costume party and like call her a slut when she shows up. That's like traumatizing. But she doesn't seem like it hurts her feelings, but she is just really good at putting it behind her and plugging on. And I just think that's a really fun character to watch. It also never shakes how generous she is to other people. The bend and snap montage is like kind of insane, but very fun that she's like offering this little trick up to everybody. And then the ridiculous scene with, I forget the name of the character, but the really tall guy in her class. Yeah. And he's like not great with girls. These girls are making fun of him for asking them out. They're like, we would never go out with you. And Elle comes up to him and like slaps him across the face and makes this big show of being like, you never called me back and I was in love with you and you broke my heart. And she leaves and the girls are like, can we go out? Which is insane that after hearing that this dude like blew off the last woman he was with, the girls are like, that guy, I want him. But still, it's fun that she seems to be just really good-natured towards everyone she meets.
That's one of the best scenes in the movie, I think. Where she tells him that he has given her the greatest pleasure she's ever known. Yeah, and she's really smart, too, which I think is a great little subversion. And she's really smart from the beginning. Like, that's how she gets into Harvard.
Yeah, because she gets 179 on her LSAT, right?
Yeah, and they have that scene of her buying the dress and the saleswoman assuming that she's an idiot and trying to like pull one over on her, I guess. And she just immediately is like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I feel like the point that like I really took away from it, the movie as a whole, was about just like how we are so quick to like judge people based on appearances. I feel like that's one of the big points they're making, and maybe even throwing some other things under the bus to like make that point. But I think it's saying like you just look at how she looks, and everyone like across this entire movie, everyone, even the people who like her, like immediately think one thing about her, and there are like so many other things that are like denied to her because of that, you know, and so many other things that are true about her. So I thought that came across like really clearly for me.
Yeah, definitely.
I also think too about like part of her power coming from like people don't think she's serious, but she is serious in some way. When she goes to like save the lady, she's serious, but she's still having fun. She's not like so self-serious and heavy and boring about it. She still like shows up in a pink suit and is like having a great time when she's at the court. she's still skilled at it, and she takes like that seriously. And I think that's an interesting kind of dichotomy that could also have something to do with, you know, could be something that they're playing in the realm of law, but could also be a commentary on the art form itself too. Because I feel like there's a lot of that where, like, you know, you take it super seriously, but then you're like, oh, is it actually good? Like the movie itself could be written off for being a light comedy in the same way that she's written off, but like it is serious too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that point.
Yeah, actually, just today, randomly, I was reading a list that Letterboxd put out of like the movies that had the most positive change in their reviews over the last 10 years. And this was one of them. That like close to it coming out, it was not reviewed by people just watching in the moment very highly, but like now it's considered a classic. And I think part of it is that thing that we like don't give a lot of credit to comedies or to fun movies. Mm-hmm. But I bet it holds up a lot more than like the dramas of 2001.
Yeah.
And whatever points they were making.
For sure.
Oh, you mentioned Warner earlier, Emmett. How do we all feel about the relationships in Elle's life?
I love that she has his headshot framed by her bedside. And just looks at that. I think that's pretty much sums up what we need to know about this toxic relationship. Now, it definitely feels like she worshipped this idiot.
He has such a movie star intro when he comes in the first time. And that's like basically a musical number almost. Choreographed with like the women all looking at the same time and like hitting his mark and turning to her. Like that stuff is so funny.
I love Pooh Bear. I love that he just gives that nickname out like candy to anyone he's with. He's calling her Pooh Bear, then Vivian. The second he's trying to get Elle back, he switches it right back onto her.
That's the one thing he's set on.
Yeah.
Pooh Bear.
Yeah, he can commit to that at least.
I think it's an interesting wrinkle that Vivian does have an earlier claim to him. Mm-hmm. In any other movie, it would be like a simpler relationship conundrum that Vivian is just like the new hot girl who replaced her and that we hate. But Vivian like is his high school sweetheart who he was with before he went to college and fell in love with Elle or started dating Elle.
He's so mean to her. It's insane the things he says to her.
Yeah, he sucks.
He sucks.
He straight up is like, honey, you're not smart. That's so mean. And she is.
And he's so dumb.
Obviously, the ridiculous way she gets into Harvard does not really happen in real life, I would guess. Not that much. But I feel like kind of a subtle point the movie is making is the way that he gets into Harvard does happen all the time. And that is like as ridiculous of a thing, which is that he wasn't good enough and then his dad who went to Harvard like calls and then he gets in.
Yeah.
And that to me is like no more ridiculous than her putting a huge amount of work and effort and bringing Francis Ford Coppola out of retirement to film the best video essay of all time.
This movie's use of montage is truly incredible. And it's like one of the great joys of this film.
How many are there? There must be at least 4.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 or 4.
And they're all set to
Perfect Day.
It's a Perfect Day.
Yeah, the movie does start and end on the same song.
Yeah, they like that song.
It's really a beautiful circle. So I read that they wrote the Luke Wilson part specifically for Luke Wilson.
Wow.
Which I have 2 thoughts about. One is that I think he is like so charming and good in that role. Secondly, it's shocking for me to hear that because he has no personality attributes whatsoever.
And almost no lines.
Yeah, he doesn't do much.
He's got to be in like maybe 4 minutes of this hour-and-a-half movie.
Yeah.
And like most of that is him just silently smiling.
Yeah. And going, no, let her finish. Let her do it. When anyone else in the world would be like, you are tanking this case. The defendant is going to go to jail for murder because of what you're doing right now. Like she was messing up big time.
He believes in her because of the power of love.
I love that he has sort of like the role that a girlfriend would have in another movie where like the job is kind of just to be attractive and support the hero and not do anything or have a personality.
I love that.
Like it is just gender flipping that.
I don't even know if we see them kiss before it's revealed to us that he is going to propose to her at the very end.
No.
I
don't even know if we see like a single moment of them like coming together. You're right. It's just like yeah, that's
we don't see a spark of chemistry, I'll tell you that.
Well, so this is what I found in the research. The original ending to the movie that they shot was that like the court case finishes, they go out onto the court steps and her and Emmett kiss. And then it cuts to 1 year later, and Vivian is blonde now. And her and Elle are running a legal blondes club at Harvard. And that's the end of the movie.
Oh my God.
And apparently test audiences didn't like that. For some reason. And they did it in like a reshoot like a year later. Well, while they were all filming other movies, those are all wigs in the last scene, I read.
Really?
Because everyone else was filming different movies, but they like met up in a chapel to film that one day.
Oh my God. I am very charmed by the "Where Are They Now" sequence thing. They do the little like Vivian and Elle are best friends now. Warner graduated with no girlfriend, no job prospects, and no anything. Like, it was so dramatic and fun.
I love whenever movies do that for fictional characters.
Yeah, exactly.
To explain where they are in the real world now. I've got to say there's one of probably the most useless subtitling I've ever seen in my entire life in that final scene, which is that we cut to the final scene. It's clearly her graduation. It looks like a graduation. And she goes up to speak and she says, "Class of 2004, here we are at our Harvard graduation." And then in subtitles across the bottom of the screen, it says, 2 years later. As though they had not already said what year it was in the dialogue.
Oh, man. It was a different time, you know?
Okay, I was thinking that this thing I'm about to say happened in the graduation scene, but I think it's the courtroom scene where her dad shows up with a martini. Because the only other time we saw him was the beginning of the movie with the martini at the pool. So the director was like, "Give him the martini so everyone remembers who this guy is."
I think that's such a great little like character background moment.
Yeah,
that we only see
fun.
her parents for 30 seconds of the movie, but it makes total sense.
Yeah, totally. It's really fun.
My last two jobs were firstly working at a salon and secondly working with lawyers. So I felt I felt very in the trenches of this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In both worlds this movie is talking about.
Wait, is there some behind-the-scenes drama you would like to share with us?
Yes. A lot of this behind-the-scenes drama was taken from Ilana Kaplan's oral history in the New York Times this year, which is very good. But this whole series, movie idea starts with Amanda Brown, who is kind of the real-life Elle Woods. She went to Stanford in the 90s and she was like very similar to Elle, like always wore pink, constantly was reading Elle magazine, which is the reason why she named her Elle Woods, and she didn't fit in with anyone there. We actually have a quote from her here in the notes. Do you want to read this quote, Emmett?
I do not, but I will.
From the real Amanda Brown.
Okay, this is from the real Amanda Brown, and it's interesting that a later movie in this series will be called The Ugly Truth. This is a real quote from her. "I was in my first week of law school in 1993, and I saw this flyer for the Women of Stanford Law. So I was like, I'll go and meet some nice girls, whatever. I went to the meeting, and these were not women. These were really angry people. The woman who was leading it spent 3 years at Stanford trying to change the name Semester to Ovester. I started laughing and I realized everyone in the room took it very seriously, so I didn't make any friends there.
That was real?
That's what she says.
Because that line's in the movie. It's like at the party or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, that there's like, it's like a background chaff line. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that's Amanda Brown. She writes this into like a fictional account that's based on the real letters she sent her parents while she was at law school. I think she gets an agent. She sends it out on actual pink scented paper. The story is that they sent it out to like publishing houses and to movie studios to get the movie rights to it in the same day. And there was like a bidding war for the movie rights, but no one would publish it. Like no one wanted to publish the book, but all the movie studios were like down to produce the movie of it. And the guy who got it is Mark Platt, who's Ben Platt's father.
Interesting.
Yes. And the producer of Josie and the Pussycats right before, which this movie has a few like references deep to. And he's sort of like the head of the franchise through all the other things that do with it. But he gets the rights. He hires McCullough and Smith in 1999, just as 10 Things is coming out, to write the script. The first script they write is very like American Pie-esque, raunchy, R-rated sex comedy. And there's none of the empowerment stuff. There isn't the character of Paulette at all. There isn't the sexual harassment. It ends with her dating the professor. And that's like the big end of the movie.
You know, a happy ending in 1999.
And then I think it obviously develops from there. The director, Robert Lukatek, is an Australian director. This is truly crazy. He had only done one thing before this, which is a short Australian film. It's 13 minutes. It's a 13-minute musical, and it's called, this is the name of the movie. It's called Tiziana Booberini.
I cannot believe you made it through saying that.
I know, when you started laughing, I was like, what is this going to be? There's no way it's that bad.
I watched it today.
Wow.
It's kind of funny. It has nothing to do with the title.
Okay.
The title is never acknowledged.
That seems very misleading.
It's a musical about a woman in a grocery store who works as a grocery store clerk who has like a little bit of a mustache and is teased for it and then gets like laser removal for it. Anyway, what I'm saying here is this is a time in Hollywood where you could be a man who had made one short film called Tiziana Booberini. And people watched it and liked it and were like, yeah, we'll give him a Hollywood movie. That was all it took.
Wow.
And he said that he spent like 2 years waiting for a script that spoke to him, and this was the one that did.
You know, he pitched like himself for Legally Blonde by saying like, as someone who's passionate about others not being judged based on their appearances, I wrote a tragic 13-minute short film in which the main character and that's why I deserve to direct Legally Blonde.
He's the female empowerment guy.
I just keep looking at this in all caps. Tiziana Booberini.
Wow.
That's too good. Too good.
Did you watch it? Was it on YouTube or something?
It is on YouTube. It's only in 480p, so it looks like you're watching a VHS tape that someone film recorded, basically.
How many views does it have?
I don't know. But one more than it did yesterday. Yeah, so he gets it. Reese Witherspoon, who breaks out as a teen actor. She's in Cruel Intentions. She's in Election. But those, I guess, are very serious roles. And she's been like trying to get like bubbly comedic roles, and no one is giving them to her. And so this is like her major breakout in that I think she had to do like rounds and rounds of auditions because no one would believe her as a comedic actress.
That's crazy, because it's hard for me to imagine anyone else as Elle Woods. I know that's because we've seen the movie, but still, it's just, she seems so perfect for it.
So I guess the only other thing to talk about is where the franchise goes from here. There's a sequel in 2003, which is an entirely different creative team. Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde Has anyone seen that?
No, but I am planning on it soon.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
I am sick now because of the way that the way we watch movies for this podcast. So now the only way that I consume things is by binging the entire series. If there's a series, I must complete it. Once I begin, I cannot stop.
Then in 2007, there's a Broadway musical, Legally Blonde the Musical, which is by Lawrence O'Keefe, Nell Benjamin, and Heather Hack. Runs for 2 years. Any experience with this?
I have seen that, and I do sing the music every time I'm in the car by myself. So, yes. Experience level high.
Evan, have you seen the musical?
I have not, but I have heard it referenced, heard songs from it. I mean, you know how it is at theater school. People are always singing songs from different things and then being like, this is from that, this is from that. And you're never really quite sure where you stand with any of it. And people laugh because your name's Emmett. They say your name in the song.
Oh, I see.
That's all I know about the musical.
Yeah, I have not seen it either, but I have heard a lot about it. I know theaters, like local theaters that have done productions of it. And Laura showed me a little bit of, there's a pro shop version on YouTube of the Broadway production that MTV produced. Because apparently MTV did a whole show, like a reality show, where they searched the country to find the actress who would play Elle Woods.
Whoa.
One of the replacements on Broadway. So I watch it. It seems pretty good. And I feel like a lot of the movie's continuing appeal is because of the musical, too.
I believe that, yeah.
How is the musical different? Do you have any comparisons?
I think it's really similar plot-wise. There are a couple things that I think they did learn from the movie they needed to flesh out. Like they kind of flesh out the sexual harassment thing a little bit. It's not like it has a ton of airtime, but she at least like has a song where it feels like it fits more in the plot, because she says like how everyone made fun of her here because of her looks, and now this seems to indicate to her that she only got the internship because he wanted to sleep with her. She doesn't belong here. Like, truly no one takes her seriously. Even the one person who she thought believed in her because he gave her the internship, which was like her big win in law school. So that felt like a little, like it felt more connected to the larger story. But I mean, I think it's close. I think it's really fun. I think it takes some of the best pieces of the movie and makes them, like, expands on them. There's a whole song about when she figures out that the pool boy who's saying he slept with Brooke is actually gay. There's an entire song of her figuring out he's gay, which was like a very silly part of the movie, but only lasted probably for like 30 seconds. The Bend and Snap number is really fun. The video essay is a whole song.
Oh, wow.
So I think that they did a great job at picking what would translate really well to a musical number, because all the music is just really, really fun. It's a good ensemble. They like keep the sorority girls. They kind of become a Greek chorus in her head when she goes to Harvard. So she's like walking around Harvard and her friends are like imaginary, but they'll do a lot of big numbers behind her. And that's kind of how they keep the energy of the musical, so that it isn't just a whole bunch of solos, because there really aren't that many characters when she gets to Harvard. But yeah, it's very fun.
Does Emmett have a song?
Yeah, Emmett's got a couple songs. There's a song where she takes him. He has a song about like getting her to study harder and work harder. He's also a bigger part in the musical. He like helps her pass her classes. And then he also has a number where she takes him shopping to get him like better clothes so that he looks hotter.
Oh, I think that's the one that people like to sing to me.
Yeah, it was very fun.
Okay, well, that sounds good. I would like to check it out, indeed.
Yeah.
Then in 2009, there was a third film, which is called Legally Blondes, which is about Elle's British... It is about Elle's British twin cousins.
Wait, are they her twin cousins? What does that mean? How can you be a twin?
Cousins.
What?
They're cousins who are twins. I'm reading from the official synopsis, which just says Legally Blonde is about Elle's British twin cousins.
Okay, but are they identical to her? Are they identical twins to her, or are they fraternal cousins?
No, they're her cousins and they are twins.
Are they identical cousins or fraternal cousins?
They're identical cousins.
Wait, really? They look just like her.
No.
Well, they do kind of look like her because that's the premise of the movie, but they aren't biologically identical to her. They're biologically identical to each other.
It was a little confusing at first, but now I'm like, Emma, how are you not getting this?
Who's playing them? Is it one person doing the Parent Trap thing?
No, it's two real-life twins. It's Camilla and Rebecca Rosso, who are Janice and Jessica on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Wait, what?
This film is a direct-to-DVD entry in the series that was directed by Savage Steve Holland.
Is Savage capitalized?
Well, there's a capital at the beginning, but not all the way through.
Okay. So it's part of his name, not
Savage
the
Steve.
It's his
writer's
first name.
opinion of him.
Savage Steve Holland.
Wow.
Just imagine what short film he must have made to get the gig. And now MGM is continually threatening that there's going to be a fourth film that brings Reese back. Apparently in 2018, they hired McCullough and Smith. We'll talk about this as we track their career, but they haven't had a movie produced since 2013. But they have been writing things since then, and they have been attached to movies. They just haven't been produced. So they got hired to write a draft for this fourth film that then production gets delayed on because of the pandemic. And while things are delayed, in 2020, they hire Mindy Kaling to write the script. And they announced a date that it was supposed to come out in May 2022, like 6 months from now. But I read an interview with Mindy Kaling from like 3 days ago where she was like, yeah, I'm still writing the script. Like, it's coming along well, but I'm still writing the script. So it's not going to come out in 6 months, considering it's not written. But it may come out at some point.
Maybe.
So is the original duo off the project now?
Yeah, their draft just, I guess, got thrown out.
Okay.
Because they hired Mindy to like write a completely new
Okay.
story that she pitched, I guess.
Is this going to be Legally Blondest Triple Indemnity?
Are you interested in seeing a Legally Blonde 2023 and seeing Reese return?
But I would be very excited to see all of the movies in this series, honestly. Any of them. I want to see her go to Congress. I know that's what she does in the next one. I want to know what her British cousins are getting up to in the barrister's office and in jolly old England. I mean, like, can you imagine? Okay, so it's these two blonde teenagers and, like, John Cleese in a judge's uniform shot on a single soundstage in an afternoon and direct to Disney Channel with it. I mean, that's what you said happened, right?
That's basically it. Direct to DVD. The third billed actor in Legally Blondes does not even have a Wikipedia page. So,
God.
And that's the third build.
The first two being the identical twins.
Yeah. The first two being the joint protagonist.
Do you think they have twin dogs? Because that's what would really get me to watch it.
I feel like if they did, it would be on the movie cover.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I saw Legally Blonde May 2022, I was like, oh, we've just got to add episodes where we watch these so we can watch the new one when it comes out.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's actually coming out anytime soon.
Oh, that's
Maybe whenever it is coming out, we can just quickly
do
Red, White, and Blonde and Legally Blondes back to back.
Next up is that segment that we call Fine Wine. Things that aged well and things that perhaps did not age so well in this film. Kate, you're first up on Fine Wine. What are you sipping and what are you spitting back in the cup for today, my friend?
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, what I'm spitting, I'm thinking about what did not age well. because I was so surprised by how much of it did. That's what I said to Wade actually right before we started. I watched the movie with Wade on Friday, and right before we started it, I was like, I'm really scared that I think it holds up well because I watched it a couple of years ago, but we're going to watch it and there's going to be something terrible in here that I just didn't think about.
Yeah.
But I was surprised by how much of it I think held up. But what I'm spitting is probably she does a little tiny bit trash brunettes a couple times, which doesn't feel like it fits in with the theme of like women supporting women and everything. And probably I don't know that I would take it out, but what maybe didn't age great is actually, no, never. Hang on, sorry. I'm going back on myself. It's really hard for me to decide.
About what? About what specific thing?
Well, I was gonna say about the scene that we talked about earlier. Maybe Wade's favorite scene in the movie, where she slaps the guy and says, "You gave me the best pleasure of my life." Because what doesn't age well about that to me is like continuing to like enforce the idea that like a guy could be a lady killer and like we should all like want to be with like the super hot guy that like, because that's kind of the subtext is that she's saying like, you never called me back and you were an asshole to me, and she cried and all this stuff, and that's supposed to make like the other girls get into him. The reason I'm going back on it is because it's like very silly, and I think the movie's aware of like how fun and silly that moment is. That's what I'm zeroing in on. I think there were some moments in the bend and snap montage that were a little weird. But yeah.
Well, I think Paulette using the R word is like one of the only slur that makes it into this movie, thankfully, but is in this movie. So that did not age well. I just don't think you could make this movie today, but I'm not saying that as a good or a bad thing. But just like a comedy, I think that is this broad and then like also sprinkles in like real, like actual issues, I feel like would not be made. Like I feel like the sexual harassment plot of this movie would be like a 10-episode prestige HBO Max series now, where like she goes to the authorities and they don't listen to her, and then like years later there's an expose and she comes back for revenge or something. I don't know, it just was very like shocking to me in this that like not like she doesn't really tell anyone, like nothing sort of happens to the guy, but she does still like win, and we feel like the emotional impact of what happens.
And everyone seems to like immediately believe her and be on her side, even though she isn't really making a formal allegation. Like the teacher, the lady McGonagall teacher, overhears her and is like, let's get that asshole or something. And it's just was like crazy that she overhears like gossip in the salon and is like 100% down to support this girl, which would never happen in real life. And then like when Brooke hears about it, she's like, oh, then I'll fire the licensed lawyer and I'll have Elle do it. It seems like far-fetched and like that wouldn't happen. But you're right, Wade. It still feels like she triumphs over that trial.
The moment when Vivian hears about it, when they're like in the prison scene, she says like, oh, I've made a huge mistake. And then there's a really long pause. And I thought that was meaning that she had like done something more. But I think it was just like for the gravity of the situation. But when she said that and there was like a huge pause, I was thinking that maybe she had like told everyone, or she had like put a complaint against Elle, or like something else was going to be a big subplot.
Yeah.
I also think outing the guy in the courtroom sort of against his will probably has not aged super well. Not least of all because like the deduction work that goes into it is like a third grade homophobic taunt on a school bus where he's just like rapid fire asking him questions. And he's like, what'd you eat for breakfast? What's your mom's name? Who's your boyfriend? And he yells it out. And then the judge is like, that proves it. But I do think like the message of this movie has aged really well.
I think it's interesting. I don't know where I fall on it. I think it's maybe an interesting dance around like the fact that the angry feminist character also doesn't respect Elle is like a really and that like she like combats that character so vehemently is like a very interesting part of this movie. And like part of that thing, like I do think that Elle Woods is like a feminist icon in some way, but she's also not like trying to change the name of the semester to Ovester because she's more worried about the practical help of like helping out this other woman who is about to be put on murder trial, and like that there's like a more pressing issue at hand or something. I'm not sure. And it's like it's almost like the protagonist having to distance themselves from absurdly woke liberalism to be able to do like pragmatic good in the world, which I think is an interesting commentary from that time period. And I don't know what that is today.
Yeah.
I don't think that I dislike it. I do think it's interesting and complicated. I think it's an honest depiction. And that's why I think it's interesting, is because I do think it's something that you would like see actually happen. It's a relationship that you can picture those two characters in real life having that relationship. So that's why I think it's worth having and keeping in the movie. It's not just about them hating each other, and there is like reconciliation, but
I also want to call out something that I think we see in movies a lot today, but not a lot at the time, which is that Elle and Vivian become friends and sort of get past their differences. That is like totally from McCullough and Smith.
Yeah.
A lot of this movie is, as you can tell from reading about all the different iterations and like the plot stuff they came up with. I don't know how much plot there is in the book, but clearly a lot of the movie is them coming up with it. But that is totally like their purposeful inclusion, is that they like start at odds and then kind of realize that the forces of the world are putting them at odds, and they actually kind of like each other.
I think that's one of like my favorite parts about Elle's character, is that she has a lot of the like sorority stereotypes, which are fun. Like she loves doing the formals and stuff, and she loves fashion, and that's her major. It's like, we were talking earlier about how we can't judge someone on only their appearance. That's kind of like the message of the movie. It isn't really only her appearance that they were judging her on. It is parts of her personality. The fact that she loves pink so much and has this little teacup chihuahua with her all the time. Like, I think all of that is adding up to their picture of her. And that is like some sorority like stereotypes. But the one that she doesn't participate in and that differentiates herself as a generous person is that she isn't thinking of other girls as like ugly or below her if they aren't as like, if they don't act like she does or wear the same clothes as her. Even like when I think Paulette asks about Vivian, and Elle is like, she could use some mascara and highlights, but like she's not totally unfortunate looking because she's so upset that she wants Warner to be with someone who's, you know, not as pretty as her, which is because she's still in love with him. But anyway, I appreciate that she still is so set on being Vivian's friend and being kind to her.
All right, friends. Kate, first up, MVP, OTP, who would you say is your most valuable player other than Elle? That's my only protagonist I'm giving you.
This was one of the few questions that I knew was coming, and it was very difficult for me to decide. I was thinking about it before the podcast. I mean, I think I'm just going to have to say I'm contractually obligated to pick Jennifer Coolidge if she's available as an option. Yeah. So I'll pick Paulette. She was really fun. I love everything Jennifer Coolidge does. And yeah, I would say Paulette.
She's playing against type a little bit here, I feel like, because I feel like normally she's very bossy and like in charge sort of character. And in this, she's like very shy and demure and has this hilarious arc of not being able to speak at all.
And that's, I think, what makes her line where she says, "I'm taking the dog, dumbass," like so fun, because that's what we all want from Jennifer Coolidge. And when she finally spits it out, it's so triumphant.
Right when this movie is like starting to lose momentum, or right when you're starting to be like, okay, what else is going on? It's like, here she comes to just like be everything you want in this movie. Wade, who would you say your MVP OTP is?
Well, we've already talked about him, but undoubtedly the MVP of this movie for me is Mooney playing Bruce. He's so good.
He is so good.
He's so good and he's so compelling, and like just the stuff that he does is great.
Yeah.
I love him. He's a very good boy, very talented. One of the best actors I've ever seen. Emmett, who's your MVP?
I think I'm gonna have to give it to Vivian. She is playing a lot of different things in this movie. Honestly, probably goes through more of an arc as a character than Elle does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, has more different changes and plays more different things. And I think she does a really good job, especially because she doesn't have a lot of lines, but we see a lot of it on her face. She's got that one moment where she like puts her hands on the guy's shoulder so that Elle can see the ring, and you're like, you know what you're doing.
I love Vivian. I think she does like such a good job in the movie. As you pointed out, she has so much to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very funny and cool because I feel like their physical types would be reversed in any other movie. Like, I feel like we are very used to sort of like mousy brunette protagonists who dress like kind of conservatively as like our main character, and then like blonde, pink, rich, mean bullies.
Yeah.
And I love that it's reversed in this movie. And then we have a rich, blonde, pink protagonist who we know is good, and a rich, brunette, conservative woman who we think is evil, and we slowly see the good.
Okay, any other final thoughts about this film before we get to the quiz, which we usually call Bums the Word, but tonight I will be calling Legally Bummed in honor of Wade's great joke.
My last final thoughts are that I loved both the costume design and the score. All of Elle's outfits are awesome. I love her pink glasses. I think she has multiple pairs of pink glasses in this movie. And the outfit where she's in like the bikini top with the big furry pink jacket over it, sitting out on the lawn, like trying to get Warner's attention with her like pink fuzzy pad and the pink, like it just like the whole thing is so fun. I love it. And the score is just so dramatic, like especially at the beginning when Warner's breaking up with her. I mean, it was almost like the Jaws, like Donna. It was like so intense. And it just made the movie really fun.
Wade, any final thoughts?
I love the score. I think the score like sets the tone of the movie and also heightens it in like such a cool and huge and clever way. And I think like because the score is so big and insane, it like gives you permission to understand that you're watching a heightened world, which I think 10 Things I Hate About You was also very heightened. I don't know. I think that's an awesome trick, and I wish that more movies would use the score as smartly as this movie does. I also think that there is another real-life joke about Owen Wilson in this movie when Luke Wilson says, "What would I look like if I was blonde?"
Yeah.
And my final thought is that I think this movie is kind of interesting as like a live-action Barbie movie. Which this is like not that far off from being maybe like a Malibu Barbie movie.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested to see how Greta Gerwig's actual live action Barbie movie with Margot Robbie sets itself apart from this movie and this character. Because I think it will have to in order to succeed.
Yeah.
Emmett, final thoughts?
2 of them. First off, having just watched a bunch of these horror movies, these slasher horror movies that also take place in like kind of a highly saturated world with like bright colors and lots of young people, watching this was like, it was a palate cleanser, but it's also a little unnerving because you're like, wait, am I sure that at some moment Freddy Krueger isn't about to pop out of one of these people and get him? Because this is exactly like the kind of dreamlike world where that might happen. So that's interesting. Always interested to see how different genres are like interacting when they get into the imagination. And then the last thing I want to say is in the very first scene when she's at the dinner and she's being broken up with, early in the scene, Warner makes the dumb excuse that she is sad, that she like has a bad salad. This whole wild ass scene happens between them. And then as they're leaving, in the background, like barely even like in the shot, like in it at all, you just hear someone saying, well, I certainly won't be having salad. And it is the best joke in the whole movie. That's what I got. Today we were playing, Kate, I know that Wade worked with some lawyers at one point. And I believe you also worked with some lawyers at one point, right?
No, I've dated some.
Okay,
I haven't
dated
worked
some.
with them.
Well, excellent. Then maybe you and Wade will be somewhat evenly matched on this. A game that I'm calling Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Waiter? I pulled up a list of 50 common courtroom terms you should know. And whichever of you can explain to me what these terms mean in a way that I like more will win this quiz.
Damn. Okay, I just want to say that last time I was on, the quiz theme was about rap music, and now it's about Wade's past career. So I really feel like this is unfair, but I will participate.
This is still my current freelance career,
right,
so I hope I do not lose my job over this quiz.
Okay, don't worry, we're not going to do all 50. These are pulled from the pretrial legal terms. All right, an arraignment. Kate, can you explain to me what the hell an arraignment is?
Yes, an arraignment is like the preliminary, like in-person part of the court case. Like before that, it's all a lot of affidavits and fancy documents being submitted. And then an arraignment is when the judge is like, all right, get in here. We're going to actually talk about it.
Okay, Wade,
Uh-oh.
what? Anything you would like to perhaps add or change about that description?
I may edit out this segment entirely. My coworkers listen to this show and they're going to learn that I don't know anything at all. An arraignment? Is that when they call you to court?
Yes.
Like you're arraigned, you're being called to court?
There's a very simple answer that I'm looking for here about what happens at this moment, that if either of you could provide that.
Okay. The judge decides if it is going to go to trial.
That's not in this one sentence description that I'm reading of it. So it might happen, but there's one specific thing that I'm looking for. It has to do with the defendant.
I don't know.
All right. It's where the defendant is asked to plead guilty or not guilty.
Oh, okay.
So you're correct. And yes, it is when they ask you to come in and talk to them, Kate. I guess you would get the point for that. All right. Next thing. What is a bench warrant?
Wade has to go first, right?
Wade has to go first for this one. Dear listener, you can't see this because the podcast is an auditory medium, but Wade is covering his face in shame.
Okay. I mean, a bench warrant is just a warrant that you have been called to sit on the bench and testify in a court case.
Yeah, it's like being subpoenaed, but as a person.
Not a subpoena.
Okay, I think Wade gets it on that one. But it's not when you are called to sit on the bench, Wade. No, it's not. It's because the bench has called you, the bench being the judge.
Oh, yes.
All right, we're going to skip around a couple. All right.
Do know. Here's one thing I do know.
What's that?
I do know that they are called either bench trials or jury trials.
Okay.
Depending on whether it's the judge or a jury who is deciding. So.
Well, that wasn't the question. Wade.
Well, yeah, if that had been the question, you would have a point. He does know some things, don't worry. Speaking of which, what is the definition of malfeasance?
I know it's negative.
Yeah, it's not benfeasance.
Malfeasance is like playing dirty. It's not quite breaking the law, but it's in Oh, no. Okay. It's in trial or during the case. You can act with malfeasance if you aren't following what's considered kosher.
Kosher.
There's a specific word that I'm looking for that you have not said yet. Wait, what is malfeasance? You're correct. Most of what you've said is correct, but you're still like around the definition rather than on it.
Wait, is it neglect?
No, not exactly. Simply, it refers to the act being intentionally wrong.
Mm.
So malfeasance is when you're intentionally doing something that you know to be legally or morally wrong.
Okay.
That seems like an interesting point to prove. All right. Recusal, something Wade might like to do now.
Recusal is when you like take yourself back. I'm trying to think of like the more succinct word. But it's when you say, actually, I would no longer like to be doing this. In regards to being in a court case.
Kate, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to offer an alternate definition. Mm-hmm. Recusal is when you invite a very kind guest onto a podcast to make her look like an idiot in front of everyone because she doesn't know what any words mean.
Okay, finally, I'm going to have to give it to Kate on that one.
That's called manipulation, everyone.
And for the final one term that actually appears in Legally Blonde, mens rea.
I think it's an act prohibited by law that is not in and of itself evil, like jaywalking. But I'm getting the no face from Emmett.
That is entirely different than what I think it is, but I remember that when they explained it in the movie, I was like, oh, that's not what I thought it was.
I just remember her saying that, but I don't know if that was the word that she was defining. But I remember her giving that as a definition to something.
I don't remember this having anything to do with what it said. It was very different from what I heard in the movie. So that's why I was having a strange face on for a second. It means the guilty mind. It is literally the criminal mind.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a different part of the movie.
Maybe it was.
That it came up. Okay.
Well, you've both won the game. Get this. The game that you are currently winning is not having to know about this crap because you are not lawyers or law students. And to that, may I say congratulations, both of you. You have managed not to do that with your life.
Thank you.
Well, Kate, do you have any places or any plugs that the people may find your work at?
I know at one point back in the Anderson University shop, Wade had my headshot up on the cork board. But other than that, that's pretty much all you can find me. I unfortunately am a little off the grid, don't have anything online you can find, but you can text me if you have my number and we can have a FaceTime call.
And what's that number? Okay.
If you have my number is my direct quote that I'll repeat.
And Emmett, what's your number?
666 and then bleep the rest out. Join us in 35 weeks when we discuss Jordan Peele's Nope. Until then, we'll be keeping you satisfied with the rest of McCullough and Smith. That will begin with Ella Enchanted.
We'll be giving you the best satisfaction of your life next week when we cover
Ella Enchanted. A book that I remember a very strangely specific part of and basically nothing else. Join us next week when we discuss the high craftsmanship of the elf sculptor Agulon and his wolf sculptures. The only part of Ella Enchanted that I remember. Oh boy. Stay frosted, everybody. You know we will.
Cinema Bums is a production of DKG Podcasts. It is created and produced by Wade Lawrence Holloman and me, Emmett Temple. Wade also edits and mixes the podcast. Our theme music is by Zane Holloman, who you can find on Bandcamp, and our show art is by Autumn Beckner. Our social media is managed by Laura Bennett. If you like what you hear, please tell all your friends and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, the 2 best ways to spread the word about our work. You can also follow us on Instagram @CinemaBums or email us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com. Don't flake on us. We'll be back next week.